Hello everyone. I'm going to start a video series on Windows Autopilot. So there will be multiple videos and I will discuss everything, all the scenarios and the troubleshooting and all the components which are uh, there in Autopilot. So in the first video, I will take the user driven Azure AD join process and later, I will come up with all other scenarios and the troubleshooting. So without further ado, let's begin. So Windows Autopilot, I am assured that whoever is from Intune background totally understand what Autopilot is. So I will move to the various components which take parts in Autopilot. So these are very important components which you need to understand and know in details so you can troubleshoot better and understand the autopilot. So the first component which is very important is hardware hash, then autopilot service and ZTDid. There are other components which take parts in other scenarios like hybrid Azure ready join. So that I will discuss uh, in the respective videos. So without delay, let's discuss hardware hash. So what is hardware hash? So it is a unique identifier for each hardware device. An admin, OEM, reseller extract the hardware hash from the device in the CSV file format and import it to the Autopilot service. So you extract the hardware hash from the device using a PowerShell command, and that CSV file you can import using any interface like Intune or the partner portal or the Microsoft Store. So there you can import that CSV file to the Autopilot service. So we need to understand that Autopilot service is not the integral part of Intune, but it's a totally different service which is there in the background. Intune is just a interface to, or any other MDM portal is just an interface to upload import the hardware hash into the Autopilot service. So a hardware hash can only be attached to one tenant at a time. Like if one hardware is being used by one organization and it is already been uploaded to Autopilot service, then if other tenant tries to upload the same hardware hash, they will get an error that this device is already registered with other tenant in the Autopilot service. So Autopilot service is a service which is there in the background, and it has all the hardware hash details uploaded into it. So how do we get the hardware hash from the device? I would like to show it to you. It's very simple. You need to run a PowerShell command, and you can import it locally or you can extract it locally on your machine. Just allow me 1 minute, I will show it. Run as administrator, get Windows Autopilot PS1 output file auto swid. So this command will extract the hardware hash, and you can save it locally on your machine. If you run this command, if you do not have this uh, PowerShell script on your machine, which you need to install from PowerShell gallery. Uh, so first install the script using the command install script name Windows Autopilot info, and you will get various prompts after allowing that. It will get installed, it will get stored on your machine, and after that you can run this command. And by running this command, it will save the Autopilot hardware hash hardware hash of the device on my machine in this folder in C drive. Gather details for device with serial number. So if I go to my C drive, I did one mistake. So I need to, yes, add .csv, so I can get a file in CSV format. So you can see I got this file, which is a CSV file, and it contains the hardware hash for the device. So that is all about hardware hash. The next important component is Autopilot service. I already told you that Autopilot is a separate service and not within the Intune or any MDM. So when Intune import the hardware hash, it is actually being imported to Autopilot service at backend. There are other interfaces to import the hardware hash to Autopilot. The Autopilot profile admins create in the Intune goes to Autopilot service and get assigned to hardware hash. So first step is to get the hardware hash from the device. Then you go and upload the hardware hash using the Intune interface into the Autopilot service. It's also called DDS, Device Directory Services. So I will go to Intune portal, go to devices, go to Windows, enrollment. Here is the devices option. You can see here is the import option. I will select this file. I will import it here. So this is Intune interface, which will import the device to the Autopilot service at its backend. Similarly, when I will create a Autopilot profile, it will go to the Autopilot service, which is at backend, and it will get assigned to the respective device, which we will discuss how we assign the Autopilot profile to the device, Autopilot devices. To understand that, let's move to ZTDid. So it is also a unique identifier for each hardware hash. So when you import a hardware hash into the Autopilot service will assign a unique ID, which is called ZTDid, and it will also create a disabled device in Azure AD in your tenant. So when I import the Autopilot using a CSV file into the Autopilot service using the Intune, in the backend, the Autopilot service will in turn create a synthetic record in Azure AD, which which object which will be object and will be in disable state, and it will show the serial number as a device display name. So we will understand this part also. This is very important. So when you upload the hardware hash into the Autopilot, it creates a ZTDid for each device, assigns a ZTDid for each device, and create a synthetic record which is in disable state. Using that disable object, which is in the Azure AD, you create a dynamic device group and assign the Autopilot profile which you create in the Intune portal. So when the device boots into UBI, so when user receives a device and turn on the device send the hardware hash. Before this, there are various steps like connecting to the network, language, region, and keyboard pages comes first, and then Intune, when device is connected to internet, it will send the hardware hash to Autopilot service. The Autopilot service will check if the ZTD ID for this hardware hash has any Autopilot profile assigned or not. So I Intune admin create Autopilot profile and assign it to the device group, which is created using this ZTD ID assigned by Autopilot service. And this ZTD ID is an ID assigned by Autopilot service for each hardware hash which you upload into the Autopilot service. If there is no profile assigned to that hardware hash or ZTD ID, uh, the Autopilot will start with default set of settings. So this was about various components. Now let's move to how Autopilot works. So as I told you already, we will take the user driven Azure AD join scenario at first. So first step is import the hardware hash. Okay. So once you import the hardware hash into the Autopilot service, which is also DDS, Autopilot will check if it is assigned to any other tenant and assign a ZTD ID to it and create an object in Azure AD as well. Azure AD object will be in disabled state and will show its display name as our device serial number. So admin will create a dynamic group with the ZTD ID as a ZTD ID as a I will show you how to create that, and create a Azure AD join Autopilot profile and assign it to the group. So before we move ahead, let's see how to create a device group. You can see the one which I have uploaded is that is here. Enable, no, it's in disable state, and device serial number will show as a device display name. So once I upload it, if I refresh it, it will show the device here. Okay, and this is the Entra portal. Okay, so let's create a dynamic device group for Autopilot services. So you go to the Intune and go to this dynamic device group, uh, and you will find it. Let's do from the beginning. Okay, create new group. I will make it a dynamic. Add dynamic query. Go to edit and enter this expression. It will create a group and will add all the devices to this group which has a ZTD ID assigned by our Autopilot service at the backend. Okay, I will save this. Okay, I will create this group. So from the admin point of view, we have imported the device into the Autopilot service and also created a dynamic dynamic device group. The next action would be to create a Autopilot Azure AD join profile and assign it to this dynamic device group. Let's focus on how this Autopilot actually works. Is after creating this dynamic group, the next step is, so this is admin side, service side, and now we will look at the end user side. So when the device boots up, first screen will be language, then region, and then the keyboard option. And if it is connected to the LAN, you will not see the connection page. Otherwise, you will see a connection page to connect to the Wi-Fi. After the connection is established, the device will send the hardware hash to Autopilot service. Autopilot service will check if the associated ZTD ID has Autopilot profile assigned and send it back to the device. It will send the Autopilot profile back to the device. And yes, if it is assigned, it will prompt the user to enter the corporate credential, which in this case would be the Azure AD UPN, Azure AD username and password. And on that screen, if you have configured the company branding page, uh, that will uh, validate that yes, Autopilot is working as expected. So it is recommended to configure this, so you know in the very first that yes, my Autopilot is working as configured. One thing to remember is we are discussing the user driven Azure AD join. So here the user will always enter the Azure AD UPN, not the on-prem user ID password. After entering the credential, uh, the first thing that will happen is it will join to the Azure AD. The device will join to the Azure AD. It's not yet enrolled into the Intune MDM, and it will associate itself with that disable object which was created in the admin page when you imported the device into the Autopilot service using the Intune. And what will happen after the device is joined to Azure AD, it will automatically get enrolled into the Intune. Once the device is enrolled into the Intune, whatever policy and apps you have created from Intune and assigned to this user or device will start uh, getting deployed to that device or the user. And there is one more option which is called ESP. ESP is a it's enrollment status page which tracks the enrollment process. So after enrolling into Intune, there is a it takes some time to deploy the apps policies so that you can track from the ESP. So there is a option in the Intune admin center where you configure how the ESP will show it to the user side, and you can track the progress. And if you encounter any failure, you can also collect the Autopilot logs from here to troubleshoot, which will be the last video in this series. In the last two, make you uh, remember this process. I have created a rough drawing where you will see what happens. This is the Intune admin portal. So here you import the hardware hash and create Autopilot profile. From the Intune, it goes to Autopilot service in the backend. So when you import the hardware hash, that will go to this Autopilot service, and this profile will also come to the Autopilot service. Once you have imported the device, it will call the Azure registration service and will register this device. Will create a disabled record in Azure AD, and will also assign a ZTD ID to it. Using this ZTD ID, we created a dynamic group. The profile is also uh, sent to the Autopilot service, and it get assigned to that hardware hash, which correlates to the respective ZTD ID. Now the user will turn on the device. The device will boot into the OB, which is out of box experience, and once it's connected to the network, it will send this hardware hash to the Autopilot service. Autopilot service will check if it is not if it is not registered with other tenant, and if it has a Autopilot profile assigned, it will send that profile back to the device. After the device has received the profile, it will ask the user to enter the Azure AD credentials. Once the Azure AD credentials is authenticated, user will join to the Azure AD. We have already a setting configured that all the Azure AD joined devices will register to the will enroll itself into the Intune. So it will get enrolled into the Intune, and it will get all the policies and apps from Intune. After everything is done, the device is registered. So when the device boots up, after connection, the device will send the hardware hash to the Autopilot service. Service will check. I already told you this. So once you have entered this is very important. So after entering the credential, device will join to Azure AD and associate itself with the disabled object created in Azure AD in the admin page, and it will enroll itself in the Intune. We will discuss the ESP in detail in one separate video, and please subscribe if you like this detailed video on Autopilot. I will discuss all the scenarios and troubleshooting part as well, and after completing this, we will move to other enrollment processes. So that's all for this video. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. Have a nice day.